I always go back to the basics because there are some of these that haven't occurred to a lot of people. For instance, there are lots of people who manage to go through life without realizing that the moon doesn't give off light. All of the light coming from the moon is reflected sunlight. There is no source of light inside the moon. Similarly with the planets, Jupiter, Saturn, Venus are all very bright. They don't give off light. They reflect sunlight. So everything you see in the night sky that isn't a star is reflected sunlight, the planets and the moon, and the moons of some of the bigger planets as well. So this is an imaginary concept. Ancient people, and I'm only going back a couple of thousand years, literally believed there was a transparent sphere around the Earth. There was no mention of how far away that was, other than all of the stars and everything else was the same distance away. Of course, we now know they're not. And if you didn't know that, well, there's something else new tonight. If you look at any given constellation, think of something like the Plough and Ursa Major, all of those stars are different distances away. Some of them, the stars are totally different distances away. They might be something like 8 light years. So if you could travel at the speed of light, you'd get there in 8 years, to 2,000 light years. Huge differences. They just happen to be a chance alignment. So all of the constellations as we see them are chance alignments of stars when we look in a particular direction. If you could look at them from anywhere else in space, they wouldn't appear in that shape, and possibly you wouldn't even see bits of them. But the ancient people went the easy way and said they were all patterns the same distance away from Earth. There's also some more imaginary concepts that we can put on that. If we start acting as though this sphere really is there, it's a useful concept in astronomy because we then get the plot coordinates. So we can refer to a particular direction you're looking or you're pointing your camera by a set of coordinates. And that begins with knowing that there's a north celestial pole on it and a south celestial pole. You just extend the north pole and the south pole of the Earth. And parallel with our equator is an imaginary celestial equator. But then our equator is imaginary, so it hardly matters that another one is. And once you have these, you can divide the night sky into quadrants and hemispheres. And then it's just like plotting latitude and longitude. If you didn't know, the Earth is not perpendicular on its axis to the path it takes around the sun. By the way, this is not even close to being in scale. We'll talk some of the numbers in a moment. The Earth, of course, is way smaller than the sun and way, way further away. It takes a year to complete that journey, but it's on a 23.5 degree tilt. Not so coincidentally, if you've ever wondered what the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn are on the Earth, they're 23.5 degrees north, the Tropic of Cancer of the equator, and Tropic of Capricorn is 23.5 degrees south. And these are the areas the sun lines up with when it heads to the extremes of the season. And around the equinox, it's directly above the equator. Here's another concept. So we've got this path that it takes around the sun. On that plane, so it's never going higher or lower, it's just going round and round. At any point when we're looking away from the sun, i.e. nighttime, we'll see a certain part of space. And that's why the night sky is seasonal. That's why, try as you might, if you go out now at 10 o'clock, you're not going to see Orion. Orion is actually visible again about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. But that's because the Earth is rotating. So there are times of the year where certain constellations aren't visible, especially the ones to the south and just above us. In the Northern Hemisphere, there are ones we see in that direction, where the axis is pointing, that we always can see. So from our latitude, we can always see things like the Plough and Ursa Major, Polaris, the pole star, they're always up there, because in space, they're above us. But all of these other ones on here are on the path of the sun. Now, the text is really small on that, so let's improve it. Notice anything they've got in common? You've seen these before, haven't you? Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces, Aries, and so on. These are the 12 signs of the zodiac. It probably was the case there were more, one of them being Ophiuchus, but we'll get to that in a moment. Anything that lies on that path of the Earth around the sun is on an imaginary line called the ecliptic, which is just on the same plane as the Earth moves around the sun. So whenever we're looking away from the sun, it's nighttime. So if you get to the end of November to December, and it's Sagittarius for astrology, not astronomy, like the star sign, the sun is right in the way of it. And that's the way that astrology is supposed to work. That the sun at the time you were born is in, like it's right over a given constellation. They don't quite work out exactly, but it's close enough. But what it means is you're highly unlikely to see Sagittarius around your birthday because the sun's in the way of it. That's something else that not a lot of people are told. But around that time of the year, November and December, you can see most of these actually because the nights are really dark at our latitude. Probably everything from the edge of Capricorn through to towards the end of the night, Leo, Virgo, and maybe a little bit of Libra. But those two are quite low anyway, so you're not going to see them around that time of year. And as the Earth moves around the sun, more and more of these become visible, and more of them are blocked out, one or two at a time by the sun. They're the dates. You've seen these before, right? So when I was a kid, we got a daily newspaper, a daily tabloid newspaper, and there were horoscopes in every day, and they were for those dates there. So that's me. You probably know what you are. And then neat, approximately 30-day periods, apart from the constellations aren't all the same width. So they don't divide up neatly like that. So if we look at astronomy, it's completely different. You will probably find, looking at that you are a different sign of the zodiac to what you thought you were if you take it literally and you take it astronomically in the modern day, as opposed to a few thousand years ago, because things drift a bit. And we've also got a bonus sign of the zodiac, Ophiuchus, the serpent bearer. So if you were born, or you know someone who was born November the 30th to December the 17th, they are, astronomically speaking, an Ophiuchian, the serpent bearer. There's another one as well, the Cetus, the sea monster, which we think used to be a whale, because that touches the ecliptic too. Any constellation that crosses the ecliptic, strictly speaking, should be part of the zodiac.